Alrighty, this is Liquid versus, I already forgot their name, Vanityy. Liquid is defense, Vanityy is offense. I personally haven't seen Vanityy before. I believe they're a new team. I only took a peek at VRML website to get the team name. However, most of the players are relatively high level, so likely pulling from existing teams. Looks like we will be seeing on this top floor a B-site push here on Jim's side. No utilities or outward roams to deny this push. However, we do see a large gathering here in Con. Bad grenade goes in. Doesn't quite get any damage. Well, Kenny is now 1 HP. But Vest gets stomping there. However, Kenny does go down in return. Ooh, Beanie also gets Caramel. Highvice goes down to Elite. Elite is refragged by Lily. Shooter gets a pick, now it's a 1v2. However, Beanie and Uzi are very low. However, does he know that there's one in sight? Commander gets the first pick. Amazing headshot there. 1v1 EP is on the wall and ticking down. He's going to have to make a move. Ooh, and turns around at the wrong time. Very good round there coming out from Vanityy. They have very good early push. It is interesting how they blew hatch, but didn't actually go into library at all. Perhaps it would have been a little bit better time-wise to just go through hallway first and completely ignore the hatch, especially since they didn't actually clear any space over here. But Liquid didn't. Wait. Is it Liquid or Fluid? Hang on. I'm going to guess it's Liquid. I'm not. Fluid must be a different team. Okay, there we go. Stream should be up on your guys' side at this point. No entry. Okay, well, as I say that, they now have space clearing out Cubby. Interesting to not have seen any drones yet. We do see pressure in this corner, however, they might see his gun if they blow that wall. Ooh, both the players in the corner there get the picks. Nade goes out. Other wall is blown. They have sightline on Con. Liquid is going to play very passive here, not extending anyone too far to try and get picks. A little bit damage gets done. However, Stompin picks up that kill. 30 seconds on the clock. The defense is going to have to make a move. Uzi gets one. However, Vest is on the roam here. Do they know? Highvice gets that pick and Beanie gets Moon. That's going to be a round win for Vanityy. A team ace as well. Very good performance there. At the beginning, it was very slow. They waited, I believe it was around 20 seconds to actually enter the building without any drone. Also, I have not seen any drones come in from the side of Vanityy, and that's been working out pretty well for them against Liquid so far. they haven't had any major outward roam. They've been sticking with sight both rounds so far. Perhaps it's a hideout play. Perhaps it's how they're going to play on every map. If they do play like this on every map, this could be a very easy win here for Vanityy. Granted, we are still only in round 3 of the first half, so perhaps with a little bit more utility and weapons, there could be a little bit of a change in pace. However, Omens and Vipers aren't going to make too much of a difference compared to Maruis and Bezins. However, that pre-nade does get a lot of damage off. That's going to be very good early on. However, they do rotate off immediately after throwing it. They're going to get foam on wall pretty early and pretty free. Carmel goes down. Not much stopping them now, except for their own instant. Ooh. Unfortunate team nade there. High-Vis, and I believe it was Beanie getting picks. EMP is getting planted, and teammates are covering. Pressure takes out one. And High-Vis there takes out the last player on back site. EMP is planted as well. It's going to give a lot of money for them to spend next round. Interesting to see pressure buyout on a Viper again. A Viper is around $1,400 if you buy all the attachments. And he went ahead and bought another Viper and still has $3,800 left. Okay. As I say this, he goes and buys a rifle. Good to see that when most of the team is buying rifles, the rest will follow suit. Usually you don't want to stagger economy too much unless it's like round 2 and you want a few SMGs and a few pistols. But if you're going to be buying rifles, you generally only want to see at most one person not following suit. At least that is what I've learned from experience. I could be completely wrong. We do actually see a little bit more outward hold here. However, Moon could be caught out by the player in library, but no, they're a little bit late. And once again, they're all sitting on site. However, are they ready for this kitchen side push? You usually don't see kitchen on its own. You usually see them also push through what's it called? Sorry, gym. Usually see gym as well. However, they seem to have completely ignored that and instead gone through door. An unfortunate plant spot as well. They're going to be able to get wall banged and shot from Khan. Beanie is able to take out one player. Stomp goes down to Vest. Great blind fire there. That's going to be a 2K for Vest. And he's going to swing out. And that's a 3K there for Vest. Very good round there. That's going to be their first point on the board for Liquid. Pretty dominant push in the beginning there for Vanityy. They were able to take space very early. However, after they had blown kitchen wall and tried to get EMP planted in this very awkward position, it kind of fell apart because you don't usually see EMP planted kitchen side very often. It's very difficult to plant there because usually there's a player sitting here and one here in con. And when you're planting even here on this box, there isn't much cover, which is why you usually see plants here. Here is sometimes an option. However, you can shoot through this wall here and get the planter, so it's not quite as common. Does look like we will be seeing a split push though. Perhaps a hatch, 3 on hatch, 2 on beast site. They have taken stairs and wall now. And it looks like they're going to get that blown in a sec. Wall is blown, and hopefully for Vanity, that gets most of the players rotated. However, Pressure gets the collateral and EMP planted. However, Pressure gets a third. Now it's a 2v5, and they're not even on site. Pressure with the 4K now, and Vest gets Beanie blocking the ace. However, it does make it a flawless. Vanity's not doing too hot now. Liquid has been playing a little bit more aggro. Even if it is still only on site, Vanity has been playing, also been playing a little bit less strategically. They haven't quite been staying together. We saw the split push coming in. Whoever the two people guarding the planter swung both at the same exact time, and that let Pressure get a 2K. And the split push just didn't work out there since, excuse me, the two other players that were pushing B either did not create enough of a distraction or reduce the numbers enough, or be able to rotate over soon enough. We do see Trips taking out Beanie very early on. 2 red room, 2 in green. Finally deciding to drone, but it's already taken out. Both walls have been blown. And that's EMP down. There's still 2 in red, or 1 in red and 2 in green. And that's going to bring it down to a 2v3, 3v2 now. Vanity at a disadvantage. Carmel swinging out, gets that pick. 1v3. And Carmel with the 2K to close off the half. Very good performance there for the defense. The Vanity offense just got a little bit too aggro alone. We saw the EMP player swing out alone into tubes, and it just didn't work out for them. Now we see a side swap. Economies are reset. We'll see what Liquid can do on the offense now. Very even so far. Maybe we could see overtime. Some top performers so far are Beanie, Vest, and Pressure, all with 6 kills. There is a defender in green. Ooh, and their drone are disconnected. That's going to leave the drone on the ground, and a free kill there for Vanity. Nade goes out. Doesn't catch any damage though. Stompin' gets another pick. Another nade goes out. Doesn't get any damage. Liquid has entered the building now. Vest is also on stairs. However, Stompin' over there in green A huge pain in the side for Liquid. 3 kills already. Ooh, Elite finally gets that pick onto Stomp, and however, not without taking a little bit of damage. It's going to even out the numbers a little bit, but it's still only a 2v4. However, we do see Vest in sight right now. Ooh, the timing there is impeccable. He might be able to get a complete roam. Highvice goes down to Vest in sight. Vest with the 2k now. He won't be able to catch the player in the corner. Hopefully Elite can get EMP and plant. Vest is going to have an encounter with the player in con. Ooh, and Beanie takes a very good blind fire guess there. That's going to make it a 1v2. However, Uzi is very low. This could work out in Elite's favor. Ooh. Beanie plays a little bit too far back, but does end up getting the last kill. However, does he have enough time to defuse the EMP? It's going to be a 4th round for Vanityy, just barely defusing the EMP. The push kind of fell apart for Liquid in the beginning there. Stompin playing in green was such a thorn in their side that they lost 3 players and a minute and a half of the round. Usually you don't want to waste more than a minute on getting foam on a wall, and usually you won't waste more than a minute, even with very aggro teams. Only if you lose like 3 of your players in the very beginning, which is very unfortunate because you would think a player, after seeing their teammate get shot on an angle, would think twice about swinging the exact same one. However, I'm just a caster. I don't know what they're thinking, so we'll see how they decide to push this one. Players dropping. Drone going in, trying to catch as many spots as possible. Drone will see 1, however, doesn't know that there's 2. Nade goes out. Have to back off. No damage. 1 damage dealt. Ooh. Elite pinched there on the hallway. Nade goes out. Won't quite get anyone. Flashbang gets 1. However, they don't know about the second player in gym. 2v4, however, Shooter is very low. Stompin also has some damage on him. Very aggro placement here from the players. Pressure is able to get 1, however, instantly refragged, and Carmel swings out into 3 of the players. One more round and that's match point for Vanityy. They guarantee OT. Very dominant performance on defense here. I've noticed that they've been playing very aggro. Not very aggro, but at least 2 players roaming every single time. And it's kind of worked out for them, because after the roams have gotten picks, either the defense rotates out because they have EMP, or they rotate back to site, which you usually want that to happen. EMP is your main priority, but Staying alive is also very important on defense, because the more people you have, the more people you can kill. And also, dying loses you the round, but that's the less important part. Looks like we will be seeing a site push. Knut going in. Interesting playstyle for this Knut. Drone goes in. Spots one. Instant goes out on con. This is going to help Elite get into sight and plant. Moon's Knut gets one. Nade takes out the planter. Instant also goes down. This is going to slow down the offense so that roam can come out on stairs. However, are they going to be ready for the Knut playing right there? Ooh, collateral coming out. However, now it's 2 roams versus 3 players on site. Are they ready for the player in vent? Highvice has swung out a little bit. He's going to be able to get one. Highvice with 2k now. Vest is on his own, defending the EMP. Highvice goes down, no 3k clutch. He's going to have to swing to deny the defuse, however, goes down, and that's going to be plenty of time for the EMP to be disarmed. Very good plays from both sides. We saw Moon's Knut getting a 3k, Highvice with 3k, I believe, as well, actually. Very good skills coming out from both sides. However, Vanityy was able to get that defuse down. And now it's match point. Liquid is going to have to step it up and full buy every single round from now on if they want to have a chance at winning. We're back on middle floor. Vanityy has won all 3 rounds of this half so far. We'll see if they can get 1 more to win, or if Liquid can get maybe 4 more to win out the map. Does look like we will be seeing a more B-site oriented defense. Maybe we'll have a few rotate over before the end of the round. Hopefully they do, because it is a full A-site push. Shooter over here on A-site hopefully calls out the drone. A lot of utility coming out here from Liquid. Shooter is able to get 2. Hopefully he can get the plant down before he gets swung. Highvice gets a nade kill. Uzi goes down. Vest takes out 2. Highvice and Beanie both getting picks, and now there's no attackers left to deny the defuse. That was really fast. A lot of utility in the beginning from Liquid, and that let them get the EMP down. However, some of it wasn't in the right position. They really needed to deny this rotate here behind bomb, because Shooter was able to take advantage of that and get a 2k. And after the EMP was planted, a lot of the attackers were still by a door. They really needed to push up to help the planter, and then in post-plant, they could also have a better hold on site. Very good map nonetheless. Amazing gunplay coming out from both teams, and I hope to see something similar in the next map. Ooh, I do not remember what that was. Final scores for anyone who's interested. Best doing very well, double digits, even though they lost. You don't usually see that coming out very often. The losing team having a higher top frag. Looks like we will know what our next map is in just a few moments. Mall. I find Mall to be a very refreshing choice. Because I don't play it very much, I'm often surprised by any plays or any coordinated plays that teams pull off. I am interested to see how they decide to push this site, because there's usually a toss-up on which site you see teams push. It's either A, arcade, or B, library side. So we'll see what they decide to do. It does look like they are leaning a little bit more towards B site. Not a bad choice. Very open site, both of these are. A site a little bit less so, but still quite open. Not quite as many defender positions. We will see all of the attackers going through one door, though. Drone going in. Players falling very close behind. You don't usually see this kind of aggression on drones. Ooh, bad nade there. Hopefully they're able to get in and plant. There's no defender here back site. It could help make it easier to plant on this box, because you can plant on this box, and it does tend to be a pretty strong post plant. Ooh, Moon gets one, however not before accidentally TKing. Now it's a 4v4 and EMP isn't planted. However, there is going to be a rotation by the looks of it. Pretty good play coming out. All crouch walking in, and there's only one defender here to watch it. Highvice gets one, instant out. That's going to deny the push because they don't have foam. Good wallbangs coming out, however, they're not there anymore. They're going to have to make a play now. For they've lost the element of surprise and all of the players have rotated sites. This will let Moon crouch walk in though, and hopefully EMP player rotates over and gets EMP planted. Vanityy now starts to rotate. It seems like all through con though. Moon with the 2K, Shooter gets the refrag, beating it goes down. Now it's a 2v1. Shooter with one, but can't get the second. Very close round there. Very interesting to see the Cyclone being used a little bit more. It's definitely an interesting gun. It was the meta in Season 1 of VRML. However, most people have since moved off of that and towards the Spectral because of its more consistent damage. It was changed, and they did recently buff it. It has had a damage boost, but it also had a mag reduction. It has less ammo now. I think this is a little bit unnecessary. I think the 12 bullets per mag was fine, but people seem to like it now, so. We are now going to the top floor. Once again, it's usually a toss-up on which site you see. However, I tend to see a little bit more B site oriented pushes. However, I'm not quite sure where these guys are going. They do seem to be going medbay, possibly for an easy rotation. I have noticed that last round they rotated twice. They swapped sites twice before actually getting plant down. So we'll see how they decide to push this. Elite swinging up into mess hall. Drone goes down early. Stompin taking it out, denying as much information as possible. Foam is on wall. They now have control of stairs. That's going to allow them to get both of the walls opened and possibly catch out Stompin on a double swing. Flash goes out, doesn't quite get anyone. Stompin has rotated. He's now in a little bit better position to watch this wall. Nade goes out and he's going to swing out, getting the first pick. One more has rotated to stairs. Hopefully he realizes this. Does, and now he's on a 2K. And Liquid is now at a 2-player disadvantage. Moon gets one, however, is swung. Pressure, swings out, gets one. A little bit of help there from Carmel. Now it's a 2v2. Carmel gets one. Now the last player is on the roam. Are they ready for this? High-Vice has made sure he stayed quiet. Ooh. And the rotation kills them. They weren't quite ready for the last player to be in med bay, and when they tried to go rotate, they were murdered. Unfortunate series of events there, and that's going to give Vanityy their first round, even up once again. Does look like we will be seeing a B site push coming out from this Liquid offense. Third round, we will be seeing a little bit more utility and weapon spot. However, Vanityy opting for less utility. I only saw Nade, and I think that might have been sold. No, they just grabbed it. Does look like it has been a rotation over to Records. Likely trying their hand at an A push. So a lot of potential with these A pushes, especially if you can get both walls blown. However, they don't seem to be in a position right now to get both walls blown. Moon gets one pick. However, the defense is playing very aggro on these walls. Nade goes out, catches a little bit of damage. Nothing major though. Stompin' on the roam is able to get one. Elite swings in, gets Beanie. Shooter trades that out. Elite swings out, gets one. Now it's a 2v3. Liquid is in the advantage and EMP is getting planted. Good flank watch there from Carmel from the stairs. That's going to make it a 1v3. They have gun advantage, they have time advantage, they have player advantage. And Elite gets the kill. Very good push there from Liquid. Unfortunate that their player got killed while trying to get the other wall foamed. However, they didn't end up needing it. They were able to very easily take site because Vanityy was playing really only by bomb. You usually want to see at least one person either right next to wall or on by that stairwell that leads down further into sight. By the stairwell, I mean this one right here. You can crouch walk behind. You can crouch behind here, peek up if you hear anything, swing out here, and in the situation where Stompin killed the roam here, they were perfectly safe from the wall. However, we're back on this top floor. Drone will probably catch out this player. Smoke goes out. High-Vice runs. However, Carmel swings out very aggressively. It's going to be first pick there. A lot of utility going out. They do still have player advantage, however, they did use a lot of utility. Does seem like, once again, they're going for a rotate. They may need to figure out something new for Maw other than rotate when it gets a little bit difficult, because at some point Vanityy has to catch on and counteract it somehow. EMP is counting down. Vanityy with the player advantage, however, not a health advantage and definitely not gun advantage. Only one of the Vanityy players has a rifle, while two on Elite do. They might be going a little slow to deny this plant. Ooh, almost lose the round there. And pressure with the 2K there. One being a collateral. That round almost turned out bad. They were on 2 dots there. Even if you don't want to fully swing out because of footsteps you provide, it is generally better to maybe just like run up to the door frame, but don't actually swing. It provides a little bit of pressure against the team, and they're forced to choose, do I stick the plant, or do I go take this gunfight, or do I do both? Do I try and win the gunfight one-handed? And it's stuff like that that really changes how the defense retakes. Well, this is a first. Nice to see that Vanityy isn't too impacted by several round losses. Drone going in. Looks like they're checking it a little bit more thoroughly. Invest isn't playing too aggro behind it. Static goes down. No wall banks coming out though. Drone checking site, trying to get as much information as possible. Stompin taking a lot of damage there. He's going to be very low for these next gunfights. Foam is on the wall. Drone's going to see a lot of information, however, no one's really there to take advantage of it. One player has also rotated further up. They might be caught off guard by the swing. Ooh, Vest takes a lot of damage there. Not going to be great for the offense. Stompin takes out Elite. This push is really slowed down here for Liquid. As I say that, Loon gets a pick. They're gonna need to make a move. There's 1 minute on the clock. Pressure gets a refrag for Vest, and Carmel is going to swing in. Shooter is able to get a 2K though. Now he has a Vezin. Ooh, and that's a last pick there. That's going to bring it one step closer to a 3-3 first half, just like first map. Once again on the bottom floor. Last time we saw a switch up, so maybe we'll see a similar play here. Or no, This is the only floor they didn't switch up. Except for last round. But we ignore last round. Vanityy is going to be able to buy a lot of utility by the looks of it, thankfully. Both sides seem to be going in with full Vezin buys as well. Stompin playing very aggressive on the door here. You don't usually see such aggressive play, and that's why. Est gets first pick, and that's a rifle down. Luckily, they don't really need it. No one playing back of hallway. However, the drone was shut out very early. Moon goes down to Hive Eyes. Foam is tossed. Ooh, Pressure gets a very early pick. Pressure with the 2K. Ooh, Hive Eyes gets elite there. And they're struggling to get EMP planted. EMP is now planted, and Carmel's watching his back. Hive Eyes takes out Pressure, who decided to jump through the window. Now it's a 1v2. All players are on max health and have all the guns they need. But Vest gets Hive Eyes there, and 4-2 start for Liquid. Very good performance there from Liquid so far on this first map. We haven't... Ooh. Confused myself for a sec there. Alright. It's fixed. Middle floor, Liquid is now on the defense, Vanityy on the attack. We are seeing, once again, a very passive defense here on the Liquid side. Ooh, Flashbang goes out. That's going to deny a lot of vision here from Carmel. Another one. That's going to let Hive Eyes swing in. However, Moon gets that pick. Here on the wall, Vest swings out. Doesn't quite get anyone. Carmel. Their backside gets Beanie. Uzi gets one. However, Shooter also goes down. Stompin could catch out one here. Yes, Carmel goes down to Stompin. However, Pressure with the Jesper. And he picks up the Cyclone and gets the kill. 2K there. Very good plays from both sides. Saw a very passive defense there from Liquid, and unlike last time, it worked very well for them. While they did play passive in the first part, letting them take space, we saw a little bit more aggression coming out after uh, the wall was blown. Seems to be a trend I've noticed about pushing the bookstore here. You tend to get caught out specifically here, so perhaps take space over here in, I don't know what to call this, maintenance. We'll call it maintenance. Take space over here in maintenance to try to get this other wall blown, and it denies a lot of line of sight. We do see Uzi here on the window. That's going to let them know very early on that the push is going to be starting here on, is this B? Yes, B site. Flashbangs go out. Catches a few players, however, pressure is here in the corner. Shooter is able to get that pick. Vanityy takes out Carmel. Moon can't refrag. Shooter takes out Elite. And we see Stompin here. Takes out Moon. Now Vest is on his own. 1v5. He does have a nade though. He could use this to his advantage. If he decides to throw that, no, it's too late now. He could have thrown it in the little cubby area, and that could have gotten him maybe 2 picks. However, it was too late after he'd shot Shooter. It is good that he still got a pick and didn't decide to save, because if you have a Spectral, you don't usually need to save, because it's only $500. He did have a stim as well, but that comes down a little bit more to personal preference on if you would like to save a stim. It is useful to not have to spend $500, maybe $950 if you do go ahead and save that stim as well, or go ahead and buy another one, but in my opinion, it's not worth it to save round 1 or round 2 if you have a Spectral. We are now on top floor. Liquid has been doing very well so far. 5 and 3, almost complete opposite of last map. Hatch is blown. You don't usually see this one blown very much. You also don't see this vent very much. 4 players here on A site. Instead of going through the door, they went through vent. Hopefully that lag doesn't take out Uzi later on. Nade goes out, won't get anything. 2 players con, 1 player back site there. A lot of utility going out. Won't quite catch anyone. A lot of damage going out. Moon here was flashed. Gets 2k now. Stompin shuts that down. 3v2. Now it's was a 3v3. Now it's a 3v2. Vest is here on the roam. And Elite Carmel are sticking sight. Ooh, Elite is able to get Stompin, and Carmel swings down, gets that pick. Match point here for Liquid on Maul. Almost a complete reverse from Arctic previously. Before, it was 3-3 first half. Here, it's 4-2 in the favor of Liquid first half. And now Liquid is 6-3. Last map was 7-3. Perhaps Liquid can get this last round and completely swap the scores. Going into possibly the last round of this second map on Mall, we see a lot of the Vanityy players still on roof. However, we do see the other two on arcade. One is in upper arcade. Maybe they hear these footsteps and call out to their team. Wallbangs do go out. High-Vis has taken 30 damage. Not great to take that early on. Stompin swings out. Taken out by Moon very early on. Moon's going to try to swing that. Taken out by Uzi, who now is very low along with Beanie. Stim gets Beanie back to mostly full health. And that's going to start the push here for the offense. High-Vis takes out one, have a refract. Beanie takes out one as well. Carmel takes out Shooter. Pressure takes out one. Carmel with this other kill on Wall, and that's Liquid completely reversing the scores. Very good plays from both sides. However, Liquid seems to be a little bit better on Mall than they do Arctic, or at least a little bit better against Vanityy on Mall than on Arctic. Final scores for those who are interested. Carmel, Moon, and Pressure, all three doing very well. Stop and High-Vis Shooter also doing very well on the side of Vanityy. 4 players going double digits. Moon also 10 deaths as well. While it's not the greatest, it does mean they are playing very aggro, and depending on the play style of your team, that could be very good. We are getting ready to go into our last map, Hideout. An OG. Personally, my favorite. Does look like we may be seeing a side swap. Maybe? Not sure. We may be waiting on one of the Liquid players to reconnect, possibly. Not sure.